So you think you own your land. No, you own the illusion of owning your land. You own nothing. Government is going to steal your land and ways they're going to do it. So let's take a look. Washington family. Well, government says they damaged some wetlands and that infrastructure has been there for 60 years. So how do you damage something that was man-made that's been there for 60 years? This is going to be a ploy. Oh, you damaged the field? We're taking your land. Oh, you did, you cut 2 trees in the forest that weren't supposed. Oh, we're going to take your land. Case in point here, even if your family's been there for multi-generations, they can just come in, make up anything erroneous and come in and swoop it and fine you. So if any sales off that go into it's like asset forfeiture for the government, and they just take the money, take the land, and you're left with nothing, like they're doing with the Washington family, the Kings here on their ranch. So it's about the alleged 22 different little bits of wetland that are around, and you can see these things are only 40 to 50 feet across. Government says this thing floods in the wet season for 2 months, and when it recedes, there's water captured there. You're not allowed to touch that, but these ponds had been put in way long ago, and they just regraded the road to be able to get out there. And the government's like, you just damaged the wetland habitat. And they're like, wait a minute. So they weren't specific on exactly where the damage was, except this one instance. So I found another one that's also they're contesting 22 areas on the property. So for example, here's another one. That green, as you can see, now this is from the photo in 2025. So that is a slightly green area. Water has deposited there. Government says, oh, it's a natural habitat. You're going to destroy it. And they're like, wait a minute. That's been there. This is a photo from 1985. So how do you say that you're damaging something that was already installed there for such? Let me do the math. 85, 95, 2005, 2015, 20, 50 years ago, it's already there. And they said, actually, it was put back in the 70s and some of it in the late 60s. So how do you damage something that was already built there? Now, these yellow arrows are the areas that are very visible that they're also pointing out. These are stock ponds. They were built there long ago. And since they're using them again and utilizing them, because apparently the rainfall has been higher and these are starting to fill with water again in areas that they're like, oh, great, we got more water. We can use that for our cattle. Oh, wait, you're raising cattle. You are a target, as always. But this is how they're going to steal the land. They're using aerial photos from Google Earth that didn't even do a site visit. They just saw this like I would do. That's why I'm using Google Earth to show you, because if it's good enough for Department of Interior and Department of Natural Wildlife, what good enough for me? So anyway, I put the yellow arrows there. These are 1985 photo. You can still see the infrastructure was in place. The far on the right up there, that wall, it seems that when there's flooding that comes in, the wall, the water goes over, and when the water recedes, that wall will contain water behind it, which will give an extra, amount of month worth of water or something to use instead of just all draining straight back into the main estuary there. And then it evaporates out and it goes up and down like this. So they're using aerial photos. Now I wanted to show you this here. That little white barn that you see on the bottom, that's part of the King's property on the ranch. But right over there, gated community, boat, small marina, completely wiped away the coast there so they could put up homes right waterfront. And this is okay. But to have and reuse the ponds that were built 60 years ago, not okay. But you can sculpt the shoreline and put a marina in, damage that. But heaven forbid you would raise cattle and give them water. That okay, cattle not okay. You can already see the ploy. A 2025 survey found that over half of U.S. adults are concerned about how fast their skin is aging, and 40% fixate on random wrinkles or dark spots. If that sounds like you, you're not alone. More and more people are noticing visible changes in their skin earlier than expected. This is why I use the anti-aging collagen secret weapon. It provides my skin with 5 must-have types of collagen needed to reduce wrinkles. And since taking it, I've experienced smoother skin and more elasticity. Plus, it mixes smoothly with my morning coffee or tea. No taste, no clumps. Be sure to grab a bag of Ageless Multi-Collagen now that it's 51% off only at healthwithadapt2030.com and help take years off the clock. Plus, by ordering now, you're also guaranteed to get the free ebook titled The 14 Foods for Amazing Skin, a 60-day satisfaction guarantee and free shipping. Once again, that's health with adapt2030.com. Click on that link in the description box below. I am absolutely going to say of my own volition, I think that those who have filed the lawsuit during the Biden administration, as well as the Department of Natural Resources and that whole local area community wildlife for the local state of Washington, I'm going to go out on a limb, personal opinion, and say they may be working with developers. Because think about how valuable that land is. They're sitting on just tremendously valuable property. Because that gated community, if you were able to connect it, you would have lakeside access on both lakes through your own private gated community. And of course, they would build a marina on the other side. And you could just take your boat from your house inside your private community and go on either lake. You would never have to leave the property. How valuable would that be? This is the same area here. And at the top, you can see the drying ponds or whatever those ponds are used for, way back in the 1996 photos as well. So as you go through the time eras here, you can certainly see this infrastructure has been there. This takes us back to, again, 1995 this time, and doesn't matter what area you're looking at, these catchment ponds or better stock ponds have been used. Now here's a little bit closer in for you what they look like today. Well, they were already there catching water. That was the whole point, is they knew it flooded every year. They get there, catch the water, and as it receded, they had water in a circular tank at the ground level. So they were trying to give this family a $267,000 fine, saying, hey, you used heavy equipment and he destroyed the wetlands. And they're like, no, our family's used it forever. So it's back and forth, back and forth. Closer in image of you, how you can see that. You see those tracks there? That's what they saw on Google Earth and said, oh, you use heavy machinery destroying the wetlands. It dries out every year anyway, so not really sure. It turns into scrub brush, kind of tumbleweedy dryness out there every single year. And this is what I'm saying. This is how dry it gets during the dry season. So to come and say you destroyed a natural wetland. Now, for me, wetlands area is a continuous all year round wetland area. Not a month or 2 months of rainfall that creates some just grasses that grow along the shore that die off every year for the other 10 months. You can't call that a wetland. That's not a wetland. That is a dry land that floods and there's some vegetation. That's what it looks like when it's green. You can see all the hills covered in a little bit plants and vegetation too during the what you consider the rainy season. But after that rainy season, it dries out tremendously. So this is where they're talking about the Department of Wildlife, etc. They're saying these grasses that grow, your cattle will eat them sometime, and you're destroying a natural habitat. This is nothing about saving anything. Else I wouldn't put boat ramps and allow people in there and put homes on the sides of it. This is to get them off their land under the excuse of using cattle. And I really believe there'll be some development project following on the heels of this. But if you go just a little bit up the canyon from their property, you can see the red pin way down there. That's where their land is, way down. So if you go up and it curves to the right, probably like the 12 o'clock position over to the east, up near the marker where it says north there, that's where their land is, right up there where those two lakes come together. Just down from that, oh, it's okay to have pivot irrigation in the same area right along there. Oh, so that pivot irrigation, that runoff from all the fertilizer, that doesn't matter. That's okay, pivot irrigation in the same areas. It's just so ridiculous how they're trying to steal people's land. So again, dry Coulee, and I remember Coulee, I've heard that name before. Yeah. The channeled Scablands, Lake Missoula, Younger Dryas impact. Remember that? You got a big old comet comes in, lands on the Laurentide ice sheet. Lake Missoula is full anyway. And then we have this instant melting. Remember, the ice sheet's 2 miles deep. Comet lands on that thing. The amount of impact force and heat anyway melts just unthinkable amounts, thousands of feet of deep water that cascades into Lake Missoula. And at that point, the glacial lake overflows by thousands and thousands of feet, sometimes 3,000 to 3,500 feet deep water. In addition, and then it starts rolling down toward the coast. And it channeled and scarred out the amount of ferocity of all that like debris-laden water, just, and what you consider that like the flat in the plains where it's just flat as flat as flat. It used to be like that, and it got scoured out incredibly deep. So to give you a perspective here, Lake Missoula itself, as a glacial lake, was this deep at the highest level. St. Ignatius at 2,940 feet, you're looking down there. The lake was at least this deep before it flooded from the glacial impact on the ice sheet there. And then it started flowing down into what we know as Washington today. So you got Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson right there. This was all flat land, and the top got scoured, and that motion of churn was so deep. This is way larger than Niagara Falls. This is at the end of it, just been a waterfall cascading down. But again, this was what you consider like go out to Oklahoma or something like this, the prairie, the Great Plains. It was flat, and then the water scoured this deep out in a single event. And it would have been terrifying because you got icebergs the size of skyscrapers in New York carrying big rocks like this downstream with it in this flood that's 3,000 to 4,000 feet deep. And as it landed somewhere, it got stuck and it eventually melted. It deposited these giant boulders here called erratics, glacial erratics. It's not from this area. That's the whole thing. It got dragged down from central Canada way over by, I guess, Ontario or something. So the ice dam breaks. We got thousands of feet of water and follow the trajectory of the water. It comes through this channeled Scablands anyway. And this is the way it flowed. And this is where their farm is. This is how deep the canyon was scoured in a single event. So it's not a natural river as such, as we understand rivers with that gradual erosion. This was a Younger Dryas impact, 4,000 foot deep flood erosion event in a single couple of weeks or month. This is the way this place was scoured out. So to say anything's natural about this and the flow and this and that makes no sense. So you can see how deep and how scarred out that area is. That canyon was gouged out through force of water of unthinkable levels for us. Can you imagine a 4,000 or 3,000 foot deep flood coming through an area? Not a mile wide, but, you know, hundreds of miles wide, thousands of feet deep, and all that churning, just wiping away everything. That's what that's left. That's where that is right there. So to say you destroyed something is absolutely comical at best. This is a betrayal for all Americans. This is a betrayal for all of us that grow food. If it comes push to shove where we get to a grid down situation or some kind of economic collapse or something that goes wrong where our supply chains get cut off and we really need our land to grow food with our communities, it just shows that governments that swing the pendulum completely to one direction or the other, I don't care what side of the aisle you sit on, I really don't care. But the pendulum can swing tremendously in either direction and suddenly you own nothing. Your land can be confiscated, swooped, and you can be even just kicked off with no compensation. You really own nothing. So to put it in perspective here, please, I hope you got something out of the video on how the illusion of ownership works. You own nothing, really, you don't. You rent it, or by the goodness of the graces of the kings shall be able to stay there and raise animals and pay taxes for the kings. It's kind of, we're still there, just under different guises, different names. Appreciate you watching the video. Please share with your friends, family, like I said, and as we get into outdoor season in the fall, doing the hiking, that sort of thing, mountain biking, Prodovite, 1-pack, 100 nutrients, no wasted time, no wasted nutrition, absolute maximum absorption. Check them out, bni.life/civilization, and use the code cycle20 at checkout. Take 20% off your order. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.